Resourceful Designer, Episode 33. Be So Good, a Graphic Designer's Guide to Success.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He once replaced his mouse with a trackball for a whole year, Mark DeCote.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for plugging me in your ears this week and tuning in as I try to help you with your graphic design business. This is episode 33, so any links or anything I talk about can be found on the show notes by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 33. Now, before I get going, I want to thank everybody who nominated Resourceful Designer for a podcast award. Many of you reached out to tell me that you had nominated me. They haven't announced yet who the finalists will be, but I'll be sure to let you know how things turn out. Now, I have another special announcement. For those of you that like listening to your podcasts on an Android phone, Resourceful Designer is now available through Google Play Music. And you can find it really easily by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/GPM. And that'll redirect you to the show in Google Play Music where you can click the subscribe button. So if you've had some designer friends that have been reluctant to check out the show because maybe they don't use an Apple device and say it's too hard to listen to a podcast, well, now they have no more excuse. Podcasts are now available directly in Google Play Music. Now, I want to thank everyone who's reached out to me over the last few weeks, either on Facebook or by email or through my feedback form at resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback, just to let me know how much they appreciate and are enjoying the podcast. And I really, really do appreciate all these messages. But I'm wondering if I can ask a little favor of you. If you are enjoying the podcast, can you please head on over to iTunes? And you can do that by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes. And that'll redirect you directly to the page where the podcast is, where you can click and leave a review for the podcast. Reviews for podcasts are great because it helps other people discover the podcast. When they come across it, one of the things they're going to do is look at the reviews to see what other people are saying about it before determining if they want to subscribe. It also helps boost the rankings in the various lists within iTunes where podcasts are found. So the more reviews a podcast has, the better chance it is of being found. So if you are enjoying the podcast, I would love to get a review from you. Now, I'm happy to say I've been having a much better week than I announced I had last week. I finished a couple of big projects I've been working on, a couple of logos, a website. And although it's not really design related and I don't get paid for it, I am switching all my website clients, or maybe not all, most of my website clients over to a new server system within the same company that I use. They just released something new and I'm in the process of migrating all my clients' websites over to it because it's going to make things so much smoother for me down the road and allow the ability to expand as new things come about. So this is not something that I can really charge my clients other than their regular monthly maintenance fees, but I'm doing it for what it'll benefit me in the future. Now, speaking of websites, I crashed the Resourceful Designer website a couple of days ago. I went in there, saw that there was a whole bunch of plugins to be updated, and I just went and click on all of them to update them. And next thing you know, the website wasn't working anymore. Now, luckily for me, I did do a backup, just like I always do. I mentioned Backup Buddy as a resource of the week a while back, and I absolutely love this plugin for everything that it can do. But anytime I'm going to upgrade any plugins on any website, it's just by habit. I go and I create a full backup of the website before doing it, and that saved my bacon this time around because I don't know what happened. The entire website, nothing was showing up. Even the back end of WordPress, nothing was showing up there. It was just an error message. So I was able to go in and take the backup that I had downloaded and replace the entire WordPress installation and the site. And within 30 minutes, I had the whole site up and running again. And then I had to slowly go through and update one plugin at a time and try to figure out what the issue was. And surprisingly enough, or maybe not surprisingly, the second time around, I was able to update all the plugins and there was absolutely no problem. So it was probably just me being a little bit hasty and clicking update instead of doing them one at a time. But I'm sure glad I had Backup Buddy running because if it wasn't for that, I don't know what I would have done. So I'll give a little plug to it here. If you are interested in checking out what Backup Buddy can do for you, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/backupbuddy. Now, it doesn't only back up, it also allows you to migrate. And I mentioned moving all my clients' websites over to a new server. Well, I'm definitely using Backup Buddy for that because you can create a migration file where it'll download it from one server and then you can go and upload it to another server. Or you can actually, through your website, without ever leaving WordPress's back end, you can tell it where the new server is, give it the coordinates, and just say, migrate the website over there, and it'll send the files directly to the other server. So that's going to save me a lot of time transferring at least the websites that are on WordPress. Not all my clients are on WordPress. There's a lot of websites that I custom coded myself. But those that are on WordPress, I'm definitely going to use Backup Buddy to help with the migration. But Backup Buddy is not actually the resource of the week that I wanted to talk to you about. And that resource is Cushy CMS. Now, Cushy CMS at cushycms.com is a truly very simple content management system that I discovered many, many years ago. Back when I was hand coding my sites, and if I had a client that wanted to do any updates to their site, I would definitely turn to Cushy. And I used it for several clients, and I actually still have a few clients that are on it, and I would definitely use it again in the future if I needed it. Now, what's great about Cushy is, unlike WordPress, where yes, you could kind of limit what a client can do, there is usually more access granted to somebody than what you really want to give them. With Cushy CMS, you actually define within your code, all it is you put a simple class to any items within your code, and those items become editable via the Cushy CMS interface on the website. So you give your clients a login, they log in, and they have a list of all the pages they can edit, and when they click on the page, only the items that were inside that special class tag that you assign to it become editable to your client. Just this morning, I was updating a website for a client. It's a website I built many, many years ago. I think I built it back in 2008 or 2009 for a minor league softball club. And they need somebody to go in and update their schedules and the scores and stuff like that. So on the various pages with that information, I just enclosed the tables and the headers and whatever I wanted them to be able to edit in the special class tag that Cushy CMS tells you to do. And those are the only parts that show up to the client. Like say when they click to edit the schedule for one of the teams, all that shows up for them is a table and they can type directly into the table. And when they click update, it automatically updates the website for them. So I don't have to worry about them messing anything up. They don't have access to the table itself, only the content. And it makes it so much easier. And I've had clients that have been using it for years. Now, what's great about Cushy CMS is it allows your clients to safely edit their content. There's absolutely no software to install and no programming required. It just takes a few minutes to set up. You can actually have an existing website and go in, and it just takes a few minutes. All you have to do is put some special class tags around the items that you want to be editable or any part of the page that you want changed. And it produces standards compliant and search engine friendly content. And best of all, it takes practically no instructions for your clients in order to get started. They simply log in, click on the page, and there's the items they can edit. So for the ease of use, I highly recommend cushycms.com. And best of all, you can actually use it for free for 5 websites. There is a paid version, and the paid version lets you customize it with your own branding. But I've never hidden the fact from my client that I'm using Cushy CMS, and it hasn't cost me a cent. And I've been using it since going back in 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. So that's this week's resource. If you build websites and you want to give your clients access to only certain parts of the website, maybe Cushy CMS is something you might want to check out. And now on to the rest of the podcast. Now this one's going to be a little bit different. I decided that instead of kind of an educational episode, this one would be more of a motivational episode. I came across an article that was geared more towards business people and leadership and that sort of stuff. And the article was just called Be So Good. And I read through a lot of the things in that article, and I was thinking how they would apply to the graphic design business. So I kind of incorporated some of them, and then I made up some of my own. So as I said, this isn't really going to be educational. It's more really motivational, but you'll understand once I get started. So as I said, the topic of this episode of the podcast is Be So Good, a graphic designer's guide to success, which is something we all strive for, success in our design business. And if you want to succeed in running your own graphic design business, you can't be mediocre. To reach those levels that you want to attain, you have to be good at what you do. Hence the phrase, be so good. So, in the eyes of your clients, you should be so good that they know you care about them and their business. This comes about through the conversations and the relationship you build with your clients and the attention you pay to them when they talk. You need to be so good that they know that you care about them and their business and that they're not just another client. Now, you have to be so good that they think of you as friends and confidants. When you reach the level where they start to talk to you about personal things and it's not always about designing and that they trust you with some of the stuff they say, then you've reached that level in the relationship that I keep telling you about over and over again. And you should also be so good that they trust your opinion and follow your lead. Clients will often have an idea in mind of what they want, but you need to be so good that when you tell them that idea doesn't work, or perhaps here's a better idea, they'll know that you're good at what you do and they'll trust your opinion and follow your lead. You need to be so good that they measure other designers by you. You don't want them to look at your designs and say, why can't you do this or why can't you do like this one? You want them to be looking at other designers and asking them why they can't be as good as you. Now, you want to be so good that they treasure your work, your experience, and your expertise. You want to be so good that they feel fortunate to have met you. You want your clients at the end of a project to thank you for everything and not just say, oh, thanks for the work, but truly, truly thank you for everything you've done for them and praise what you've done. When your client feels fortunate to have met you, you know you have a loyalty there that can go on for years and years. Now, you want to be so good that they don't question your prices. It doesn't come down to dollars and cents. You want to be so good that they're willing to pay more, pay extra, and maybe even pay in advance for your services. You want to be so good that they're willing to wait when you're busy. No matter how important their project is, they won't go to anyone else. They're willing to wait for you. Now, you want to be so good that they seek your opinion in non-design matters. They may ask you about employees. They may ask you about products they're thinking of launches or strategies they're thinking of or directions to take their business. Stuff that doesn't have anything to do with actual graphic design. But when you're that good, they will seek your opinion on this sort of thing. You want to be so good that you're the first person they think of when they need business advice. You want your clients to come to you not necessarily with an idea in mind, but for your advice on what you can do. If they need something marketed, but they don't know how to do it, they're going to come to you and ask, what do you think I should do? How should we market this? What sort of design pieces should we produce? You want to be so good in the eyes of your client that they bring up your name in conversations with their colleagues. Whenever they're at a business conference or a networking event or talking one-on-one, when the conversation of business comes up, your name pops up in the conversation as a valued asset to your client. In lines with that, you want to be so good that your clients refer you to others, even when they're not asked for that advice. You know, the type of referral where somebody will say, hey, if you ever need this sort of service, you should contact this person. They say it not because the other person was looking for this sort of service, but just because they're so happy with the service that was given to them that they want to share it with others. You want to be so good that your clients know you'll be there for them when they need you. And finally, you want to be so good that your clients can't imagine running their business without you. When you're this good, you create a loyalty in your client that will last for years and years. And when you're this good, you don't need to seek out as many clients as you think. You can have a very well-sustained business with only a handful of these good, loyal clients. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be looking for new business. You should always be looking for new business. But a home-based graphic design business can be sustainable with only a half dozen clients if they're the right clients and that you've become so good in those clients' eyes that you're the one they turn to for advice, for design, for questions, for opportunities, and for friendship. So that's why you should be so good in the eyes of your clients. Now, what about your competitors? You know, in the eyes of your competitors, you should be so good that they try to copy or even steal your ideas in what you do. I mean, you may not want it, but it is flattering when your competition starts copying what you're doing because they see it as a success. You should be so good that your competitors actually start coming to you for advice. I know that every couple of months, I get an email or a phone call from another designer in the area just asking me for advice on something. Yes, they're my competition, but they know I'm at a level where they can contact me and ask for advice with their own business, even though we're doing the exact same thing. You want to be so good in the eyes of your competitors that they refer their own clients to you whenever the opportunity arises. Whether they can't handle the job, whether they'll be away for an extended period of time, or whether they're closing up shop. You want to be so good that you're the one they turn to in these situations. In fact, you want to be so good in the eyes of your competitors that they want to try to partner with you, which, if that's something you're interested in, could lead to great things in the future. So not only should you be so good in the eyes of your clients, you need to be good in the eyes of your competitors as well. But what about your critics? When you start getting at that level that you're so good, there will be people who will look at you with a little bit of a slant and criticize what you're doing. So you need to be so good that they criticize what you do and your work, not because it's bad, because they can't do what you do. You need to be so good that your critics just strengthen your resolve and your drive to do even better than what you're doing now and grow even more. You need to be so good that their criticism doesn't bother you, that you don't let it hurt you, that you don't even bother looking at it. You need to be so good that others come to your defense and stand up against your critics. This happened to me just recently on Facebook. I'd posted a question and had tons and tons of really, really good answers. And then I thanked everybody and said that I was possibly going to use that topic in a future podcast episode. Somebody stepped forward and started criticizing me for misleading the group and being sneaky and asking a question just for my benefit and not because it was a true graphic design question. Well, before I had a chance to reply, a whole bunch of people came to my defense and stood up for me and mentioned how much I help in that group and how much I help others in my podcast, and that they were honored to answer a question, whether it was a real graphic design question or just a question I had for the podcast. So you should never let your critics bother you, but you should be so good a graphic designer and so good a graphic design business owner that they can't compete with you. And when they try to criticize you, others will come to your defense. So in conclusion on this topic, what I want to tell you is running your own graphic design business is a lot of work. But if you're dedicated and you want it to succeed, you will. All you have to do is be the best that you can and be so good that your customers revere you for making their lives so great, that your competitors become your collaborators, and your critics, well, if you're that good, it doesn't matter about the critics. So that's what I wanted to discuss this week. As I said, it's not really an educational piece. It was more of a motivational piece I wanted to share with you. Something you could think about for your business and for your career, that you don't really need to think about competition and about doing better than others. You just have to be so good at what you personally do and let the others worry about you. Now, I'd love to know what you thought about this episode since it was a little different than the last 32 episodes I put out. Please leave me a comment on the show notes page at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 33 and let me know what you thought of this episode, or send me your feedback at resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback, or send me an email at feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com. I'd love to know what you thought of this episode. So now I'm going to move on to the question of the week. And this week's question comes in from Norman. It says, "Hey Mark, hope all is well. My question for you is, how do you handle working with clients from out of town or out of city? How often would you go to meet these clients in person, before or after the project has started? Thanks again for all the awesome help and feedback and knowledge." Well, Norman, to be honest with you, I don't feel a need to go meet my clients that are out of town. There was a time when you might have had to do this, but these days with Skype and Facebook and so many other ways of communicating, you can run very complicated projects without ever meeting the client. I've had plenty of clients over the years that I've never actually met face to face. Some of them I've only talked to over the phone, so even if I walked up to them or came across them in a store, I wouldn't even know that they're my clients. And that's never interfered with me doing a job for them. Now, these days, I do try to get some sort of conversation, and instead of doing it on the phone, I'll talk to a client via Skype, just so I get to see their reactions as I talk to them, to get that kind of one-on-one. And if Skype's not possible, I'll do it over the phone. I'll never take a job solely via email. I do have to hear somebody at least, if not see them. But I found that if you ask enough questions and if you ask the right questions, there's really no need to meet the client in person. I mean, anything that might be at their place of business that you might need to see, they could take video and send it to you. They can take photos. You can ask questions and get them to describe it. So as far as I'm concerned, there's really no reason to spend the money, either your money or your client's money, for a face-to-face meeting. Now, with that said, if you're working a very, very big job, like I'm talking tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars for a job, then maybe you want to present something in person, in which case travel expense should have been worked into the specs of the job beforehand. Now, I could say I've never had a job like that. I have had a few jobs that have been in the 10,000s, the 20,000s, but they've all been more localized clients that I've been able to go meet in person. The clients that I have, and I do have clients all over the world, I could say most of them are probably under the 10,000, a few of them over, but nothing over $15,000 for a project. And if I had to meet them in person, it would just mean increasing the price for the project. Now, with all that being said, Norman, I do encourage you, if you happen to ever be in the area where one of your clients is, by all means, stop in and talk to them, because I'm sure they would be happy to meet you and you would be really thrilled to meet one of your clients. And that's happened to me before, where I've done work for somebody without ever actually meeting them, and then mention to them, well, I'm going to be in your city on such and such a date. Do you mind if I stop by? And I've done that. I've walked in, I've introduced myself and say, hey, I've been working with you for 4 years on this stuff, and nice to finally meet you and shake hands with you. Now, what that did was it strengthened the relationship even more, because now we had a face-to-face meeting. But I had been working for many, many years with that client beforehand without actually ever seeing them, because at that point it was just over the phone. So I'd never actually seen what the client looks like, and the client had never seen what I look like. And of course, we had a good laugh about that, about me being much taller than they anticipated, because I'm 6'2", or at least I used to be 6'2". I'm shrinking these days. But you always have a good laugh about that sort of thing. But really, it wasn't important for the project itself. So I don't know if that's the answer you were hoping for, Norman. But in the 10 plus years that I've been running my business, I've never gone out of my way to meet a client that was not within easy driving distance. And I say easy driving distance would be within an hour's commute. And even then, I've had clients that have been an hour away that I've never actually met face to face. With Skype, with email, with text messaging, photos and videos, it's entirely possible to run a very large marketing or design campaign or project without meeting a client in person. So thank you very much for that question, Norman. If you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future episode of the podcast, please visit my feedback form at resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and ask me your question there. Now, in next week's episode of the podcast, I'm going to be talking about deadlines and the difference between important and urgent. Until then, if you want to reach out to me, I am on Twitter at resourcefulD and on Facebook at facebook.com/resourcefuldesigner. The website, of course, is resourcefuldesigner.com, where you can find my feedback form, or you can email me at feedback@resourcefuldesigner.com. Now, I want to remind you once again of my resource of the week, which is Cushy CMS at cushicms.com, an extremely easy way to allow your clients to update only special parts of a website that you want to give them access to. And while I'm at it, I'll remind you that Resourceful Designer is now available on Google Play Music, and you can access that easily by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/GPM. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I would love to get your review on iTunes. And I've made it really easy for you by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, which will redirect you to the page where you can leave your review. So that's it for me this week. Much shorter episode than normal, but as I said, it wasn't really so much an educational episode, more of a motivational one. And I would love to hear your feedback on what you thought of this episode. And you can leave a comment at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 33. Till next time, I am Mark DeCote. I wish you all the best in your graphic design business. And as always, I remind you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.